Hi, this deep dive is going to be on function composition. Now, there's probably a 75–80% chance, somewhere in there, that a function composition question will be on the ACT. And most of the time it comes in this form. Given f of x equals 3x squared plus 1 and g of x equals x minus 1, what is f of g of x? A foolproof way to do this is to think of f of x, the outermost function, as f of box, not f of x, because the x can be anything. So just label it as a box. A lot of people, when they start doing things with functions, they keep doing f of x, f of x, f of x, f of x, and it's always an x. In reality, that x can be anything in the domain, or anything that gives you something in the domain. It doesn't have to be an x. It could be whatever you want, as long as that thing is in the domain. So, f of box equals 3 box squared plus 1. Everywhere you see an x, make a box. And then put in the g of x. Think of it that way, makes life a lot easier. If you have to on the ACT, actually write it out like this first. That's fine. It'll take you, what, 2 or 3 seconds? It's not a big time killer. Then, this is what you want. You want f of g of x. Well, this equals 3. Now, what is g of x? X minus 1. Look at there. Now it's just algebraic simplification from here. This is 3 times what? X squared minus 2x plus 1 out here. This is going to be 3x squared minus 6x plus 3 plus 1. It's going to be plus 4. Done. That's it. So f of g of x is 3x squared minus 6x plus 4. Get it? You do this one. Given f of x equals 3x minus 5 and g of x equals x squared, what is f of g of x? Pause the video and resume when you're done. All right. Again, f of box equals 3 box minus 5. Right? You're rewriting this with boxes instead of x's. I stick in my g of x, stick in my g of x. Okay, easy way to think about it. What's g of x? X squared. So that's 3x squared minus 5. Hey, that was an easy one. Done. You do this one. F of x equals x squared minus 4. G of x equals x plus 2. What is f of g of x? Pause the video, resume when you're done. All right. F of x equals x squared minus 4. G of x equals x plus 2. What is f of g of x? Well, f of box equals box squared minus 4. Need a g of x in here. That means g of x over here. Just everywhere there's x's, you put boxes and stick the g of x inside the boxes and you're done. What is g of x? It's x plus 2 squared minus 4. Well, this becomes x squared plus 4x plus 4 minus 4. Those cancel. You're just left with x squared plus 4x. Done. X squared plus 4x. Let's try one last one. You do this one. F of x equals x plus 1. G of x equals 3x squared minus 5. What is g of f of x? Pause the video. Resume when you're done. All right. This time it's g of f of x, not f of g of x. So g of box equals, well, what is g of x? 3 box squared minus 5. This time I want to know f of x's, so stick f of x's in the boxes. What is f of x? It's x plus 1. And this is where your algebra comes in. This is x squared plus 2x plus 1 minus 5, which equals 3x squared plus 6x, distributing 3, plus 3 minus 5 is going to be minus 2. 3x squared plus 6x minus 2. Good? Good. All right. This is the most standard way they would give this to you on the ACT. The second most standard is this. Same sort of problem, just this time instead of finding out what the formula is for f of g of x, they want to know what the value is of f of g of 2. or f of g of 5, or f of g of whatever, or g of f of 5, or some number. So they want a number here. So you can do the things we did before and then plug in 2 at the end, or you can just get what g of 2 is. G of 2 is going to be equal to, same thing here, let's see, that's going to be 3 times 2 squared minus 5, which equals 3 times 4 minus 5, PEMDAS, 12 minus 5, which equals 7. Okay, so that means this g of 2 is 7. So f of g of 2 equals f of 7, since g of 2 is 7. G of 2 is 7. So what's f of 7? That's going to be 7 plus 1, which is 8. That's it. Okay, so these are easier. Instead of going through the whole rigmarole to figure out what the actual formula is for f of g of x, just plug in g of 2, figure out what that is, plug that answer back in, find what f of whatever that number is. In this case, g of 2 was 7, then plug in f of 7 and get 8. That's it. You do this one. F of x equals 2 times the square root of x. G of x equals 4 times x to the 4th. What is f of g of 2? Pause the video, resume when you're ready. All right. G of 2 is equal to 4 times 2 to the 4th power, because g of x is 4 times x to the 4th power, which equals 2 to the 4th power is 16. 4 times 16 is 64. Done. So what is 2 times the square root of, let's see, so f of g of 2 will equal f of, since g of 2 is 64, that's the 64. And that's going to equal to 2 times the square root of 64. Well, square root of 64 is 8. 2 times 8 is 16. Okay? So, again, it's the easiest thing to do here for the ones where they actually give you a number. Do the inside first, and then plug that value back into the outside. Try one more. All right, you do this one. F of x equals x cubed over 3 plus 2. G of x equals minus 2x plus 6. What is g of f of minus 3? Pause the video, resume when you're done. All right, what's f of minus 3? Well, that's going to be minus 3 cubed over 3 plus 2. Minus 3 cubed is going to be minus 27 over 3 plus 2. 27 over 3 is 9, so it's minus 9. That's a 9 plus 2, which equals minus 7. Okay, so g of f of minus 3 is equal to g of minus 7, which equals 2. Plug it in. Minus 2 times minus 7 plus 6. Minus 2 times minus 7 is 14. Plus 6, that equals to 20. All right, let's move on to the third most common type of function composition question I've seen on the practice ACT exams. This one's less common, but comes up every now and then, where it's the same sort of deal, except they give you 3 functions and want to know the composition of all 3. Now, usually when they give you this, they give you the number inside, like what is f of g of h of 2, and we could do that. But let's just go through this exercise once to see how this would work if you actually do the formula, and then we can do the thing with the numbers as well. All right, so this one, well, what is f of g of h of x? I'll go, well, what is g of h of x? G of h of x is going to be g of, well, h of x is 5x, which equals to, what's g? 2 times 5x minus 2. Basically, g of x, just plug in your h of x, which is going to be 10x minus 2. So f of this guy is going to be, since f of x is equal to x squared, f of g of h of x, get the right parentheses there, something like that, is going to be f of 10x minus 2, and h of x is x squared, so that's just going to be 10x minus 2 squared. That's a 2 squared. So this, think of this as a box. Well, it's just box squared, because f of x, all you do is square it. put whatever you're inputted in is you square it. So we're inputting in 10x plus 2, so we're squaring it. So that's going to be 100 x squared minus be 40x plus 4. And that's it. That's all. So this is kind of a harder case. Another case that would give you something more like this. What is h of f of g of 0? In this case, you just go from the inside and work your way out. What's g of 0? G of 0 is equal to 2 times 0 minus 2, which is just minus 2. So what is f of minus 2? F of minus 2 is 4. Minus 2 times minus 2 is 4. So what's h of 4? H of 4 is equal to 5 times 4, which is 20. Got it? Work your way from the inside on out. Think you can do these? Good. Let's show you one other thing that I've seen shown up a couple times on a couple of practice exams is this. They'll use this notation, and it may confuse some kids because maybe you haven't seen it before, and that's fine. But they'll say, what is f, and it looks like a circle O, g of x? What in the world? This is shorthand for f of g of x. So this is the same thing as asking, what is f of g of x? So if you ever see the kind of little O in the middle, looks kind of, I guess, more like this. You know, be like a little circle, kind of almost like a multiplication sign, but open and a little bigger than that. So f of g, it looks almost like it's saying the word fog, but it's not an O, it's not the same size as the other letters, it's a little smaller. If you see that, all they mean is f of, that just means an of, f of g of x, okay? And then you do the same sort of stuff as before. A similar one they can give you is something like this. What is h of f of g of 3? Something like that. In that case, all that means is what is h of f of g of 3? These two statements are equivalent. Okay, so just know that going in. If you see those little circles like that, that just means of. That just means it's a function composition notation. And lastly, let's hit the other last type of function composition problem I've seen on the practice test that you should be able to do. They'll give you a table looking something like this with x values here, and for that given f of x, like f of 0 would be 4. So you plug in 0 into x and you get 4. If you plugged in 0 for g, you get 1. You plug in 0 for h, you get 3. So it's a table like this telling you what the values are instead of giving you the actual equations or the actual functions, equations for the functions. They don't give you the equations for the functions, they just give you a table for them. Then they say something like, if f of g of h of a, some number a, is 3, what is a? Okay? The way to do this one is to go from the outside in. What does this thing in the middle have to be for f of that thing to be 3? Well, for f of the thing to be 3, the thing in the inside has to be 1, because f of 1 is 3. So we know g of h of a would be 1. Well, what does x have, this thing in the inside have to be for g to be 1? Well, for g to be 1, that thing on the inside has to be 0, which means h of a has to be 0. Well, to get h of a equals 0, what does x have to be? 2. That means a equals 2. So just work from the outside in, good to go. You try this one. F of g of h of a equals 0. What is a? Pause the video, unpause when you're ready. All right. G of h of a, what does that have to be for f to be 0? That stuff on the inside, for f to be 0, the only thing it can be is 4. That means g of h of a equals 4. So what does that mean h of a has to be? G of what is 4? G of 4 is 4. So that means h of a has to equal 4. So what do we get here? For h to be 4, x has to be 3. So a, 3. So the input has to be 3 for the output to be 4. The domain value corresponds to 4 in the range. But that's neither here nor there. That's it. So these are the main 4 types of function composition problems I've seen. Most other things dealing with functions aren't composition related problems. They're more like And maybe we'll cover those in other videos. But for function composition, these are the main things. They'll give you f of x and g of x. What is f of g of x? That's the main type of thing you should be able to do. After that, they give you f of x and g of x. What is f of g of 3? So you just find what g of 3 is, then what f of whatever that number is. Done. They can give you the weird FOG notation, which means just f of g. They can give you 3 functions, which is harder. It's not as common, but it can happen, where you just have to solve that. And they can give you a table. Maybe they come up with something new, but that's what they've done, and again and again and again and again. The ACT likes to repeat the same kind of problems over and over and over again, and function composition seems to be a favorite type of problem they like to give. So know how to do these. Hope this helps.